Tyrese has gone to social media, offering his take on lots of stuff. And sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's love, but this time he does a live conversation with civil rights attorney and my friend Ben Crump, where he talks about Kamala Harris and domestic politics. Listen to this.
Speak up and speak truth to power. When we speak,
President Biden and Kamala Harris signed an Asian hate crime bill, which makes it beyond illegal to ever purposely and maliciously do anything to anybody in the Asian community. And there was a spike in crimes and criminal behavior in and around COVID, allegedly and specifically motivated by Trump. And so everybody started treating Asians, beating them, killing them, shooting them, stabbing them, hurting them. And then he gets into the White House, skips over every black and brown Mexican and Latino that have been getting killed like flies, and he makes it a law. Asian hate crime bill is signed into law. So whether you're a police officer or a regular civilian, if you wake up on a Wednesday and say, he's Asian, a woman or a man, let's go do something bad to them, which God forbid would ever happen again. But it is a crime bill that was signed into law that protects Asians at all costs. Where is that same fucking law to be signed into law when it comes to black and brown people? Because what you're doing is, President Biden and Kamala Harris, what you're doing is you're saying that black and brown people will continue to be disposable. That's why we got to vote, and we got to make sure our voices are heard, Tyrese. And it matters when we speak up and speak truth to power. When we speak what's on our heart, we will be heard. But first, you got to have the courage to speak up. And that's why I love you, Tyrese. You speak your heart, and your heart will never fail you.
Your heart will absolutely fail you when your heart is disconnected from your brain, or your heart and brain are disconnected from the facts. Let's be very clear here. I ain't got a problem with celebrities speaking up. I ain't got a problem with celebrities speaking out. I don't think that you need to be a professor. I don't think you need to be a critic. I don't think you need to be a professional pundit to have an opinion. But when you have a big platform, I think it's important to be responsible with that platform. And responsible discourse comes by being informed. Otherwise, other people will walk away thinking that what you said is true simply because they know you and like you. So it's important that we respect Tyrese and his right to speak, but it's also important that we hold Tyrese accountable for the rant he just went on, which makes no sense and simply is filled with factual inaccuracies. He says that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris signed an Asian hate crime bill and ignores Blacks and Latinos. It's just not true. There's already hate crime legislation on the books. There are hate crime laws that go back to the 60s. Obama also passed one, the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act 15 years ago in 2009. Then President Biden, the very person he said didn't do something, signed the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill into law in 2022. That's following more than 100 years and 200 failed attempts by lawmakers, finally making it a federal hate crime. So to be clear, you can say that we haven't done a good job of protecting Black folk from the state violence and white supremacist violence, state sanctioned violence, state sponsored violence, state abetted violence. You can say that this country does a terrible job protecting Black people. I agree. But what you can't say is that there is this Asian hate crime bill and nothing for Black folk. That is simply untrue. And I'm hearing people say, well, those bills aren't exclusively for Black people. Well, that's not exactly true either. The anti-lynching bill that the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill that went into effect in 2022. If you're arguing that, well, what if someone else gets lynched, then they also will be covered. Why is that a problem? Although we understand that the legacy of lynching in the United States is almost exclusively done to Black people and most often to Black men. So if you're saying that the bill should have only said this is only for Black men and written out other people, I'm not sure how that helps anybody. But as a practical matter, the bill was already for Black folk. But again, when you talk about all of these bills, all this legislation, it doesn't leave out Blacks and Latinos. There is federal and in most states, very aggressive statewide policy to address Black people and hate crimes. Now, again, there are a million reasons to be critical of Kamala Harris, even on the criminal justice front. You can have a different opinion. You can have a different philosophy. You can have a different ideology than her. You can look at her record in California. You can look at her voting record in the Senate. You could look at the bills that she supported as a VP, and you can make a principled criticism if you have one. But to go out here and make it seem as if they only went after Asians and protected Asians, and I've heard before they only protected gay people. These things are just not true. And to be clear, it's not because I am shilling for the Democrats. No, the Democrats often exploit identity politics. If anything, the Democrats are great at giving you superficial bills while not shifting political economic realities. The Democrats are great at saying we're going to protect you on paper, but not give you access to capital, not give you reparations. Again, there are a lot of criticisms you can have of Democrats, of the Democratic Party, of the history of Democrats, of the legacy of Democrats, but you can't just come up and make shit up. And it's very clear that Tyrese is speaking from a place of being uninformed. You peel a little bit here from one person, you peel a little bit from that person, and you say stuff that is lightly dipped in truth, but ultimately misrepresents the situation. Someone would walk away from Tyrese's analysis believing that Black people don't have federal protections against hate crimes, that if you do a hate crime against an Asian, there's a penalty and there isn't one for Black people. That's the spirit of what he's saying, and that's ultimately not true. But it's also not true if you get into the weeds of it. We can do that sometime. I'd love for Tyrese to come on. We can build. I've talked to the brother before, built with him a few times. Like him, just think he's dead wrong. But the problem is, of course, Tyrese has just said, I don't know if you know this, that he is retiring from social media. He announced that today, that he's retiring from social media to focus on prayer and to avoid the, quote, very nasty and unbearable narrative that real men don't cry. Look, Tyrese is clearly in need of some kind of support. He said it before. He's talked about the Breakfast Club recently. I want Tyrese to get all the support, all the love he needs. If he needs medication, take it. If he needs therapy, take it. We all need those things at some point in our lives. No disrespect, no clowning, nothing. Love the brother. Just don't talk about this politics shit in front of millions of people giving bad information because it's dangerous.